Imperial Lounge presents an icon.
Reggae dancehall by the beach. To be held at Imperial Lounge, 2 to 14 High Street, Margate Seafront, Kent, CT9 180. To be held on the first Saturday of each month. Your host DJ Matt. Also rotating DJs, Roddy Boone, DJ Happy,
and Younger General.
Doors open 8 p.m. till late. Free entry all night. Music policy, reggae, dancehall, and a touch of soul. On the first Saturday of each month. Reggae dancehall by the beach. At the Imperial Lounge Margate. Do remember you can also get VIP and shisha booking. More info on the World Jam Global website. That's www.worldjamglobal.com. Also www.imperialloungemargate.co.uk.
See you there.
Use them, it's the right thing you doing. Rebellious like Malcolm. 1, 2, 3, swing it.
Do you have an old sound tape or your favorite cassette tape that you want converted to CD or MP3 format? Do you need a demo CD, radio ad, a DJ, or even a sound system for your wedding, birthday, or special occasion? Then why not get in contact with KTR Records on 07931 152 448, or check out our website on www.ktrrecords.com. We have been in business since 2004 and also undertake community projects. So for your remixes, doublets and all your sound editing needs, why not contact KTR Records, official sponsor of World Jam Global Radio. KTR Records, coming your way.
Do you like music like this?
Great music all the time.
Or like this?
The music you love.
Maybe this.
Great music that makes you want to turn up the volume loud.
Or life track like this.
Especially where human life is concerned. Surely, sooner or later, people will realize that lives actually matter.
Then you're in the right place. Keep it locked to World Jam Global, where music is harmony.
Music 24 hours a day, 365 days a year.
Yeah, you're a World Jam. Hotter than them.
See live schedule.
You see, it's here. You see. New feature coming from World Jam Global Radio in 2018. World Jam Global Top 10. To vote for your favorite artist, go to twitter.com/World Jam Global or facebook.com/World Jam Global. So pick the right track where you want to have in your car, at your house, a rock. At them.
I already did my time. I paid for my car.
I'm gonna be right with you.
I already did my time. I paid for my crime.
I'm gonna be with you very shortly with another big show.
I already did my time. I paid for my crime. I already did my time. I paid for my crime. I already did my time. I paid for my crime. Back in the day,
My guest today,
about the system,
Roy Seckley,
about survival,
Sevgi Fernandez,
died.
and Mark Farmer. And we're looking at the Marcus Merritt story,
I learned my lessons in
A
this.
Twist in the Tale.
But man, I couldn't
Stand by.
good with my hands and very quick on my feet. I was swimming in women. I had girls all over the street. I was getting money. Life was so sweet. Now things have changed. The whole game has been rearranged. I'm a changed man. Don't need no gun in my hand. It ain't about being no gangster. Life is too short to spend it all in jail. Trying to cope with this living hell. Already did my time. I paid for my crime. Already did my time. I paid for my crime. Already did my time. I paid for my crime. Already did my time. I paid for my crime. Already did my time. I paid for my crime. I was was a drug dealer, sold more drugs than Superfly, but I never got high on my own supply. I'm not proud of what I had to do. That's why I'm telling my story to you and you. I had to repent, I must admit, I was doing all kind of stupid shit. Now sit back and think it over since I've gotten older. The life I used to live, I wouldn't do it again. I was young and dumb, my brain was so numb. I was a real Forrest Gump, but I was nobody's chump. Me and Billy the Kid had a lot in common. I was the real Terminator, much meaner than Arnold Schwarzenegger. I'd chew you up and spit you out like a real alligator, especially all you haters.
The opening statements are going on right now. He could be facing life in prison.
Already did my time, paid for my crime. Already did my time. Already did my time, paid for my crime. Already did my time. Pay for my crime, pay for my crime.
On a week when we've seen Texas jury sentenced Roy Oliver to 15 years in prison for the murder of 15-year-old Jordan Edwards. A small victory
and have the right to vote
in a big glass bowl.
And again, this is my message to all of my friends.
We've got mothers and families fighting for justice all over the world.
There was not a man I couldn't beat. I was good with my hands and very quick on my feet. I was swimming in women. I had girls.
And today we look at the death
money, life.
of Marcus Merritt Sr.
The whole game has been rearranged. I'm a changed man. Don't need no gun in my hand. It ain't about being no gangster. Life is too short to spend it all in jail. Trying to.
Don't forget to share this around the world. Share this on all of your platforms.
Crime.
Tell a friend to tell a friend to tell another friend to just share it all around. Let's not hide the truth. My guest today, the mother of Marcus Merritt, Royce Eckley. I was going to say Joyce Eckley then. Sevgi Fernandez, activist and advocate, and private investigator, Mark Farmer. Stand by. We've got another explosive interview right.
I'm proud of what I had to do. That's why I'm telling my story to you and you. I had to repent. I must admit, I was doing all kind of stupid shit. Now sit back and think it over since I've gotten older. The life I used to live, I wouldn't do it again. I was young and dumb, my brain was so numb. I was a real Forrest Gump, but I was nobody's chump. Me and Billy the Kid had a lot in common. I was the real Terminator, much meaner than Arnold Schwarzenegger. I'd chew you up and spit you out like a real alligator, especially all you haters. Already did my time, paid for my crime. Already did my time, already did my time. I paid for my crime, already did my time.
The opening statements are going on right now. He could be facing life in prison.
Trying to cope with this living hell.
So far we've got Royce on the line.
Trying to cope with this living hell. Yes I am, yes I am, yes I am, yes I am, yes I am. Trying to cope with this living hell. This living hell, this living hell, this living hell. Already did my time, I paid for my crime. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread.
We've got Royce Eckley on the line, waiting to come on very shortly. We've got Sevgi Fernandez. And we also have Mark Harper working desperately hard to try and get on the line.
The power, the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
He's got a message saying that his Skype won't come up, but I'm hoping that he's going to be able to figure it all out before we go on here. Standing by.
Pay for my crime. All those drive-by killings, stop them. It ain't about nothing. He who was out sin, let him cast the first stone. I'm trying to get this felony off my back so I can get my life on track and have the right to vote and live like an ordinary citizen again. This is my message to all of my friends in the pen, statewide, worldwide, and put down those knives. Stop stabbing each other. Yeah.
Got one little mouth to worry about.
Okay, I'd like to take this opportunity to introduce my guests who've been mingling away in the background. I can just hear them chittering and chattering as I come in here. But I've got Sevgi Fernandez and Royce Eckley on the line. And first, let me just introduce activist and advocate Sevgi Fernandez. How are you, Sevgi?
I'm fine, thanks. How are you?
Not bad at all. First, let me just congratulate you on the birth of your child, and we just pray that everything is going well and you're enjoying the early days of motherhood.
I am, thank you. It's baby number 4, but it's the first girl, and so we're very happy. Thank you very much.
Well, that's great. We're so honored that you could actually take the time out, especially at this precious time, just to be with us on the show. Just to let you and Royce know that I am in communication with Mark at the minute, and he is desperately trying to get himself online, although he's struggling to get his Skype to come up at the moment. But we are talking in the background, and he's trying again as we speak. So hopefully we're going to have Mark Harper on very shortly, private investigator. But Sevgi, just remind our audience a little bit about you and what you do as an activist and an advocate. By the way,
sure.
Founder of Together We Stand. Let me just point that one out.
Yes, I have a long history of civil rights activism in my family. My father was a Black Panther in Boston, and he helped to desegregate the neighborhoods and keep the Black families safe. And I founded Together We Stand almost 3 years ago now. And we advocate for victims of racism and discrimination, and we advocate for families who've lost loved ones to police brutality. And I'd say 90% of our work so far has been dealing with cases such as Marcus's, and the other 10% has been doing advocacy and work with families who have experienced discrimination in our education system here in the United States. So we've got a lot of work ahead of us, and certainly with our current head of government, it's been busier than ever, but we are very pleased to be on your show today. This case has been one of our longest since we started our work, and Royce has become part of our family, and we are pretty determined that we get justice for not only her, but Marcus and his children, and the work that you're doing, bringing this to more people is vitally important. So we thank you. Not a lot of people bring to light these cases that don't get the national spotlight. And that's one thing Together We Stand does, is we will not take a case that has been in the national media where people have the resources and the attorneys flocking to them, and they've been on Sean King. We want to help the families who can't get that publicity, because they're the ones that truly need it. And so we're very grateful for the work that you do, Kirpin.
Well, Sevgi, thank you. I'm absolutely honored. I started doing these type of shows about just over 3 years ago, 3.5 years ago now. And little did I know back then I'd still be doing them 3.5 years later. I started doing it as a one-off with a lady called Linda Sue, who was part of Copwatch, and introduced me to Greg Greer of One World Foundation, First World Foundation. And
in Chicago, correct?
Yes, correct. And
yeah,
they was on my first show, along with Alex Salazar, former LA police officer who was retired just after the Rodney King incident, and who's been an activist and a campaigner against police brutality ever since. But we did that show the first time, and I did not realize that it was just, here in the UK, we just didn't realize how bad this issue was. out there, because we don't have it reported on our news over here. And even with the uprising of satellite TV and worldwide networks, this was still something that really was pretty raw to us over here. It wasn't getting in our national press, and it wasn't getting on the TV or the radio. So, well, when I got that, and I got introduced to do another show the following week, and 3.5 years later, I'm still here. Every week there's just another, either it's a wrongful conviction or an unlawful killing. And we've been doing it now for 3.5 years, and it's an honor to be part of the work that you guys do. So thank you very much for the work that you do, and the fact that you guys agree to allow me to help you air this show, because it really is a privilege and an honor. But we're going to be coming back to you very shortly, and just to announce that Mark is rebooting his computer as we speak. He's having some problems. Again, as I said, I am in communication with him, and he is trying to be live with us, and he will join the call just as soon as he can get himself up and running. All right, but then let me just move right over swiftly before we come back to you, Sevgi, and introduce our main guest tonight. And I say our main guest because it's the mother, and it's always nobody expects to bury their child before they pass off. And but Royce, I would imagine it would have been an extremely painful experience for you. But before we talk about that, first let me just ask you to introduce yourself and tell the audience who you are, and why how you're connected to this particular show, and Marcus Merritt in particular.
Hi, I'm Royce Eckley, and I'm Marcus's mother. Sevgi has been helping me for the past few years, and the way I got connected with you was, I think she had gotten some information about you, and before she could really connect the two of us, I think I had already inboxed you and started talking to you. So I've been, go ahead.
No, you carry on, Royce. This is your spot.
Okay. So I've been trying for 5 years to get justice for my son, and I won't stop until that happens, until whoever is responsible is securely locked away.
The unfortunate thing is, this is not the first time that we've tried to bring this show to the audience. We did so a few months ago, and I don't know what powers or what people that you've upset, Royce, but even during the broadcast,
we've upset the whole state of Louisiana.
Yeah. Well, even during the broadcast, we got cut off at some point. And although I was recording it, and I carried on recording it, when we tried to upload the recording had disappeared as well. Had no sound, and then I think you had problems with trying to resurrect the copy that you had, because I'm sure you said that somebody else had recorded it, and then that just disappeared, and wasn't able to upload either. So we are going to pull out all the stops just to make sure we get everything out this time.
Okay.
Okay, so we're still waiting on Mark as we speak, and once his computer, I don't know what kind of a computer he's using, but I do know that you guys have not been the best when it comes to IT and modern technology. But hey, we're gonna get there somehow, and we'll keep on trying. We'll keep on trying to get Mark, just as long as he makes himself available. But in the meantime, what I want to be able to do, first let me just go to Sevgi. Before I come to you, Royce, and I'm going to ask you to just tell us a bit about Marcus's life, etc. I just want to find out from Sevgi, how long have you been involved in this particular case, and what drew your attention to it?
We got involved, Royce, was it the spring of 15 or 16? I think it was.
You were already involved in 16.
Yeah, so it must have been in 2015. And I was helping another mother, Cherise Wells, whose son was, Christopher Wells, was killed, shot in the back in Warner Robins, Georgia. And I was on her page, and Royce was on there talking about Marcus. And so I messaged Royce, and that's sort of how we connected, and we've been together ever since. This case in particular has just eaten away at me, because you know, as you were saying, Kervin, you know, when you first started your show, you had no idea how bad it was. And I live here. My father was a Black Panther. I've been involved on some level my whole life, but until I really got going, I had no idea how bad it was. And Royce's son's case in particular is a very scary example of how police corruption can completely deter any sort of justice occurring. I mean, we have hit walls every step of the way. Unfortunately, we're continuing to go, and we've had some breakthroughs, but it's been an eye-opener for me, and I think that's why her case in particular is so important to get out there, because unfortunately our national media doesn't cover these things very often. I mean, there are the big cases that sort of break through, maybe a few a year, but that's it. And there are people dying every week somewhere in this country unlawfully at the hands of police. And so I think it's important for people to see, and when they listen to Marcus's story, they will see exactly how deep-seated corruption is in our criminal justice system. The folks that are supposed to protect and serve sometimes only protect and serve themselves, and so it's been a very frightening learning experience for all of us in Together We Stand. And but you know, they won't win, and as Royce said, she will keep going, and so will we. We are committed to see this through to the end, regardless of how many people we have to piss off in Louisiana to do so.
Mm-hmm.
Well, again, we honor you and the work that you do, and we just hope that long may it live. And yes, as Royce rightly said, it's not a case of they won't win. The most important factor here is we won't give up. And as long as we don't give up, we'll still be standing at the end, which guarantees the victory.
Right.
Okay, so before we talk about how Marcus came to his end, so to speak, let's just talk about Marcus, your son, because you brought him into this world. You gave birth to him.
Yes.
Tell us about Marcus the child. Tell us about Marcus the boy that was growing up.
Okay. He was born on May 25th, 1975. He was my first child. And, you know, it was a glorious, happy day, my first baby. And growing up, he was, you know, he never met anyone he didn't talk to. When he was little, I used to tell Mama, you know, I'm scared somebody's gonna steal him. And, you know, we could be in the store, or, you know, I mean, he was like maybe 2.5, 3, and he'd just speak to people, you know, older people, and he'd have conversations with them. And, you know, he could speak very well, you know, to be so little. And you know how adults will sometimes ignore kids and talk to you. And, you know, he'd be with me and somebody might ask, you know, what's his name? And I'd tell them, I'd say, Mark. And then, you know, they'd say, well, how old is he? And I'd finally tell them, I say, you can talk to him and ask him anything you want. He can tell you. And so he, you know, he would take over the conversation. But he was just, you know, he was all boy. He was, you know, he was just a fun little person. And I miss him, you know, I really miss him.
Wow. What was he like when he was going to school? What was his majors? What was he, you know, what was he good at?
He was great at math. I don't like math. His sister doesn't like math, but he was, you know, one of his friends told me, he was like, he makes me mad. And I was like, why? And he said, because you know, I'm cramming and studying and trying to figure stuff out. And he said, and Marcus doesn't even have to open a book and he can pass a test. And I was like, yeah, well, he's really smart. And, but I used to tell him, Mark, your friends are gonna, love you and hang with you and all, even if you exhibit that you're smart. I said, you are just, you're just smart in school. Stop trying to act like you're not, do what you're supposed to do, because he'd go through his phase of, one teacher told me, he was like, I explain, the lesson and everything. I look at his face, I look at his eyes, and I know he has it, but he will not put it down on paper to save his life. And I'm like, no, he won't, So he was funny. He was really funny. But, there was nobody who ever met Mark that he didn't leave an impression on. It's like I've told Sevgi, I wish you had known him, because you would have loved him. There was people gravitated toward Mark, like if they were having a barbecue or something, he would, he'd make you laugh. He didn't like for people to be sad and, and stuff like that. So he was just that type of person.
You said that Marcus was one of 4 children. He was your firstborn. What was his relationship?
He was one of 2.
Oh, one of 2, sorry. What was his relationship like with his siblings?
With his sister? Oh, he adored her and she adored him. It was always funny because I used to tell him, you asked for her. He came to me one day and he was like, I want a baby sister. And I was like, well, oh, okay, And so when I told him that I was going to have a baby, he never said, my little brother or whatever. He always said my baby sister. And, I had no idea it was a little girl. And then, of course, I found out it was. And he adored her. He, like I said, and she was the same way. It was just the 2 of them. And she misses her brother immensely. She won't even talk about it.
Wow.
Like we'll laugh, sometime and share stories or whatever. But as far as him passing away, she doesn't talk about that at all. And she told me, like, it's like when I see pictures of Mark, it's like something sits on my chest. Yeah.
Again, as I said at the very beginning, it's a mother's nightmare.
It is.
Burying her child before she goes. And
it's against nature.
And I would have imagined that day, the day of the funeral, because I can't remember exactly, but I do know we're going to go into it very shortly. But there was a whole pile of stuff that delayed all the things that you needed to do, right?
Right.
But that day that you did get to lay him to rest must have been a very traumatic and emotional day for you and your family.
It was very surreal, like you said, it's nothing that you ever fathom happening. And, it's like I tell people, had anyone ever told me I would live the rest of my life without Mark, I would have told them, you're out of your mind, and it was just, standing there, I couldn't believe it. I still can't believe it. It's just, that's how I describe it. It's very surreal.
Well, Mark Harper, private investigator, is still desperately trying hard to get on the call so that he can support with the various bits of information that he has available. And I was so looking forward to his contributions today because I remember you sending me a message saying that Mark's really going to let him have it this time. So,
so
I was really looking forward to that. But we're going to try and get on and piece together what we know so far
Okay.
So as we know, on January the 4th, 2013, Mark passed away at precisely 6:51 p.m. according to the coroner's aide's notes. That's what I have in front of me. But at 6:17, was that when you received the call from Astria, or was that when?
Right. That's when she called me.
Okay, so I want you to run us through the events as you know them, and then we'll just start picking it apart as we did last time. And hopefully the FBI won't be able to get in to cut us off.
Okay, really? Okay, yeah, she called at 6:17, and I was at my daughter's house, and she told me, I think Mark just did something to himself, and I was like, well, no, I mean, what would make you think that? And she said, because we were texting, and now I can't get him to answer. And I said, well, you know how Mark is. I said, he's just not answering. I said, especially if y'all are into it, you know, he won't answer. Well, she said she was leaving work. She had called her parents to go and check on him. And, you know, so I was leaving with her, you know, I'm on the phone with her. And I told her, I said, well, hold on a minute. And I clicked over and I called him, and I was saying out loud, I was like, answer, 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 you know, but of course he didn't answer. Well, I clicked back over and I told her, I said, well, he's not answering me. I said, which isn't strange. I said, because he's probably saying, well, now she's called mama and I'm not going to answer her either. So she told me, you know, she was leaving work, but, you know, like I told you before, I didn't hear anything. I didn't hear footsteps or running. I didn't hear keys. I didn't hear a car door close. I didn't hear a car start up. I didn't hear background noises. I didn't hear anything. So it was totally quiet. And, you know, I knew about how long it took her to get home. And so I asked her, I said, are you home yet? And she said, no. And then, you know, we got quiet again. And then a few minutes later, I asked her, I said, are you home? And she said, yes. And so I asked, I said, are your parents there? And she said, yes. Well, again, you know, she's made it home. I don't hear the car door open. I don't hear the ding, ding, ding of the, you know, when you open the door. I don't hear, you know, a car turn off. I don't hear anything. And so she said, and then also I was listening, you know, how you can hear voices, you know, maybe I'm listening to hear wait out here or something. I didn't hear anything, total silence. Well, she said, they're not coming out. And I told her, I said, well, just, you know, wait a little bit. They're probably talking to him, you know, trying to see what's going on. And we got quiet again. And then again, she said it, they're still not coming out. And I said, well, just, you know, wait. Well, I started feeling weird because I'm like, something's not right. Something's not right. And then she said, he did. And she started crying. And then her mother took the phone and said, Royce, I'm sorry. And after that, I didn't know what was going on because I just went into orbit. I was gone.
So at the first point of order, you're being told that at that point, had you been told that Marcus was dead or was dying? What was you being told? What was you actually being told?
That was it. That was how I found out. Her, you know, with hearing her say he did, and then her mother taking the phone and saying, Royce, I'm sorry. That was how I found out.
That's your entrance into your son is dead. At that point,
right?
Did you have any understanding as to how they were insinuating he had died? What?
No, I had no idea. I didn't know what had happened. All I knew was that she said, I think Mark just did something to himself. I didn't know what had happened.
Okay, so now you're being left with the assumption that Marcus had taken his own life.
Taking his life. Right, right.
Okay, so in all, I'll play David's advocate. What was wrong with that picture for you? I mean, if that's his wife and her mother, and they've called you on the way from the hospital, telling you that there's been an argument, and you might not be aware of what the argument is. Now they're telling you that Mark has done something silly. What was wrong with that picture for you? What, sometimes we smell a rat, right?
Well, that's the thing. At that time, no, I didn't. I didn't understand what was going on. Mark lived in Louisiana. I live in Texas. I'm getting all of this through a phone call. Well, and I don't even remember, like I said, that's how I was told. Well, I don't remember how it was that I found out that he had supposedly shot himself. But I didn't understand it. But at that time, I didn't have any other reason to believe otherwise, because that's what I was told. I didn't, I had no feeling that something was wrong. Like I said, I didn't understand why he would have done something like that, but I had no reason to believe otherwise, because that's what I was told.
Okay. So Sevgi, you're jumping on board to come and support Royce and her family at this very tragic time. How soon after Marcus's death did you actually get involved with the active campaign?
I think it was at least a year, maybe a year and a half after Marcus had died.
And how did you look at that first part of the information that you've just heard Royce give to us as to what had taken place, transpired between herself and Astria?
Well, I got a bit more of the story when we first heard things, so I wasn't coming in right at the beginning where Royce, she had heard that and had no reason to question it. I was coming in when we already had a lot of information that would make anyone question it. So I don't know if you want me to jump in and to sort of bring you up to speed on where we came in, but
see, I'm talking about, you see, that very beginning, there's some very interesting elements for me. So, Royce is talking about, and correct me if I'm wrong, Royce, Astria worked at a hospital, right?
No. Oh, yeah. She worked at a hospital.
Right.
And she, like I said, she said that she was leaving work. Let me get you maybe to the next day. Okay, this was Friday. I got there Saturday. Well, when we got there, I went in the room where she was and I asked her, I said, what happened? What were y'all texting about? Where's his phone? Well, to this day, I've never seen his phone again. And she showed me her phone. Well, I don't remember what I read, but obviously it was nothing that, made me think something is wrong here. And so I asked, I'm like, what happened? And she said they were talking and her phone went bzz, her phone made some noise. And I was just looking at her and I was like, she said, and then I heard Mark go, and I said, what are you talking about? That's not what you told me. I said, you told me y'all were texting and you couldn't get him to answer. I said, so now are you saying he did this in your ear? And I said, that would be heartless. And Mark wasn't heartless, Well, and then she just got quiet. She didn't say anything else. And, I was under the impression that Mark was from here. I wanted to bring Mark home. So I told her, I said, well, I want to take Mark home. And she just looked at me. She didn't say yes, no, nothing. She just looked at me. And, well, I can't read a look, you're not saying anything differently. So I asked for the funeral home's number. So I called the funeral home, and, the lady that answered, I told her who I was, and I told her that I was trying to get information to know how I could take Mark back to Texas. She asked me, she said, have you talked to his wife? And I said, yes. I said, and she didn't seem to object to it. So she said, well, I'll have Pastor Ford call you. And I was like, okay. So, we went about doing different things. Like I said, I really, really don't remember who told me that he had supposedly shot himself. Well, we went to her grandmother's house to visit her and, and different stuff. And I was wondering, okay, he hasn't called me back yet. Well, finally, I said to her mother, I was like, Pastor Ford, because I had called from her phone. And I said, Pastor Ford hasn't called me back yet. And she said, oh, well, he called. And I said, well, you didn't let me talk to him. And she said, well, Astria still is undecided on what she's going to do. And I was like, okay, then. All right. So whatever, and, it, like I said, she didn't put, give the phone to me when he called so I could talk. Well, what that all boiled down to was, before I had even left Texas, Mark's funeral arrangements had been planned. I got there one Saturday, and I found out later that his funeral was planned for the next Saturday. Nobody had informed me of that. Like, when I walked in that door, they already knew I wasn't taking Mark home because they'd already gotten the funeral arrangements planned. Okay, why not tell me that?
There's so much conflicting information. His death was ruled suicide from a self-inflicted gunshot wound.
Mm-hmm.
But the information that was given as to where his body was found, that was confusing at first.
Yeah, he was supposedly at home by himself.
And you say that Marcus wasn't heartless, that he would have done that while he was on the phone to Astria, right?
No, he wouldn't have.
She's trying to insinuate that he literally shot himself while he was on the phone to her.
Right.
Now,
yes.
Bearing in mind that you say that she works in a hospital, she called you from work and said that she was on her way to the house.
Right. She was leaving work to take them a key to get in.
Yeah.
Which also was weird because they never locked the doors until at nighttime. I used to go out there frequently, and I would even laugh and tell him, you live in Mayberry. I said, because y'all don't even lock the doors. Every door that was on that house would be unlocked until nighttime. Like if we went somewhere or something like that, of course they would lock the doors. But otherwise, they'd be in there, and the doors weren't locked. And I'm like, okay, if nobody needs a key, if Mark is there, they just go in. I've been at your house before, and I've seen people just walk in. Because one time I was sitting in the kitchen, and somebody just walked in, and I looked at Mark, and I was like, okay, it's like that nowadays, huh? So I couldn't understand why they couldn't get in, why they needed a key to get in.
Now, I do wish that, we had Mark Harper who's still, believe it or not, desperately trying. He's now got himself another PC and he's trying to relaunch and re-download Skype so he can get on the call. So I am still in communication with him, and he is still trying to get on the call. But as a private investigator, there's just so much more information he can add to this. But Sevgi.
Oh yes.
But Sevgi, I you know, we're Joe Blogs, we're Joe Public. We're not private investigators. We're not forensic scientists. But Royce has spoken about Astria calling her on her way home from work. She was at work at the time when she apparently was texting with Marcus. And then when she felt that, well, there must have been something that provoked her to believe that she needed to leave work immediately during her shift, because it wasn't the end of her working shift. She was going to leave work in the middle of a shift in order for her to go and deal with this situation. But bearing in mind that we're talking about a hospital, now, I know a hospital has long, hollow, echoing corridors. And if there was an urgency on somebody exiting a hospital, that would have been evident on the phone call. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. It wouldn't have been, and hospitals are not quiet places.
No.
There's no chance that Royce would not hear some background noise if Astria was indeed in the hospital.
Right.
And there's no noise all the way home. She's supposedly bringing a key for them to get in, but when did she hand the key over? It sounded like they were already in that house, or, I mean, they just, nothing adds
but
up.
from what I gather, there's no sound of driving either. No noise,
Exactly.
no horns blowing, no
nothing.
no indicators. You know, when you turn your indicators on, is that click, 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 click? You know, there's all sorts of noises that would take place even in the vehicle. Because if I'm correct, Royce, the phone call connection never broke from the moment you spoke until she got there, right?
Right.
So you
well, we got cut off, and then she called me back. But, still, it was nothing. It was quiet. It was like when she wasn't talking or I wasn't talking, it was just like this.
Okay. So
it
now,
was totally quiet.
Explain to me again what happened when you got to the house, because I remember there was some very interesting information, especially about the police arrival and where they were and what was taking place at that time.
I never saw any police or anything, Kerbin. When I got there the next day, you know, all of this was completed. I never saw police or anything. I never saw any police.
Sorry.
All I knew
I need to rewind, because no, you didn't come straight, did you? But she got there, right? And what was it that you heard over the phone while
nothing. That's what was so, like, when I started getting reports and things, that's what was so crazy to me, because I'm reading stuff and I'm like, when was all of this going on? I was on the telephone. When, was everybody whispering? I seriously doubt it. But I was out, like, when I started looking at the report, like, that I had gotten from the ambulance call or whatever, these times coincided with when I was on the phone with her. Like the time that it says the police start arriving and all of this, I'm like, I was on the telephone. I would have heard all of this. I would have heard all of these people. I didn't hear anything at all.
And you would have imagined, Sevgi, that Astria has arrived at the scene of a terrible happening, whatever you want to refer to it as, and there would have been a lot of commotion. There would have been a lot of noise. There would have been. What about sirens?
Well, I'm a wife. I'm a wife. I'm married. I know that if my husband died, I wouldn't be quiet. I'd be hysterical. I think most women that you speak to, I don't know anybody actually, wife or not, that if you love somebody and you've just found out they're dead, I don't see utter silence as a possibility at all.
Well, and then you have to back up. If she has now told me that she heard something, how would you even leave work to drive? Somebody else would have to drive you. You'd already be hysterical. If you are now saying supposedly he shot himself in your ear, how would you leave work? Quietly leave work.
You'd be hysterical.
Exactly.
Even if it wasn't your partner. If it was a pure stranger that had just taken their life in your presence in any way whatsoever, you would have been hysterical. Let alone being it your partner.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
And so that's what's not ringing true to me, because, you know, if I was I do a lot of support work myself, and if one of the people that I was supporting was trying to take their life, and I'm trying to talk them out of it, don't be silly now, don't be, and they, I mean, I would need help. I would need some comforting. I would need some comfort. I would need somebody to kind of counsel me spiritually or emotionally or whatever, and get me into a right frame of mind, because I would be hysterical.
Exactly. You know, that's what I'm saying. After you think about it, that she said he did this with her on the phone, then how could you possibly leave your job and drive yourself anywhere?
You would
how
not.
Could you even find a way out of that building?
You would not be in control of your emotions. You'd be absolutely traumatized. And furthermore, the conversation that she would have been having with you would have been a lot more hysterical and out of control.
Exactly. It had it something really happened that way, when I answered the phone, I would have had to been calming her down. Wait a minute, you know, what is going on? She would have been screaming.
It would have been incoherent.
Right.
Like, you would not be able to comprehend what she was saying, because it would have been gobbledygook.
Right.
But she sounded like she was in total control of her speech, her emotions, her actions, and her agenda. Everything was controlled.
Because it was a pre-calculated phone call. So and she didn't drive anywhere with any sort of panic, because it was a pre-calculated phone call.
So let's start talking about what we think did happen, Royce. What do we think really happened? We can't be factual. We haven't got this as fact. But based on the fact that it couldn't possibly happen the way that she said it happened, what's the alternative theory, Royce?
Well, yeah, we can say what probably happened now that we have a toxicology report, and there was all kind of drugs in Mark's system, everything but the kitchen sink. So either they overdosed him, or they did something else once they plied him full of drugs.
Okay, so are you saying that they must have been? Is there any discrepancy between the timeline of her saying what time she called, or he called, or they were texting, and the timeline of the coroner's death time?
I'm not sure.
Unfortunately, we can't really put a lot of emphasis on the coroner, because
he never saw him.
The medical examiner never set eyes on Marcus. That's one of the areas where this case gets murky, and starts making red flags. But Royce, I think we should mention the mattress, because I think that's a key factor.
I was coming to the mattress
Mm-hmm.
because as far as I'm aware, the mattress was burnt within days.
Right.
The next day, if I'm correct.
Yeah, I think so.
And then within a
Mhm.
few days, the house was absolutely cleaned out, right?
Right. That's right.
So go ahead.
Here's the deal. Apparently what their story is that Marcus shot himself while sitting on the bed, and the day after Marcus died, her parents, and was she there as well? Do you know, Royce?
I don't know.
They went to
I
the
don't know.
house and they burned the mattress that Marcus died on. That is not a normal thing that somebody does. And that also speaks to how the police handled it, which we also know wasn't correct, because the sheriff's department normally handles these things, but the chief of police waved the sheriff off, and there was no proper securing of the death scene. The sheriff's department didn't come on scene and do an investigation. And then the family burns the mattress the day afterwards. I mean, that's just
unheard of.
Absolutely unheard of.
Mm-hmm.
Unheard of. We know now that we've been able to secure the full report, and Royce has not, but I have examined the death scene photos many times. One of the most difficult things I've done in my life, because I'm not trained to do that, but in the work that we do now, that's something I do have to do at times. And there is no possibility that Marcus shot himself on the bed and ended up where he was in that room. In the photos was sitting upright against a dresser next to the bed. It's physically impossible for that to have happened. And I wish Mark was able to be on the line, because I know that blood spatter has been examined. They're going in different directions. I mean, there's the gun in the photo has been moved in different. I mean, it's just, there's so many things wrong with that scene. I don't even know where, and I'm not trained for this stuff, but I could see it, and
right.
There have been multiple experts that have gone over these photos and have all, not some, all said the same thing, that he could not have put himself in that position if he had just shot himself in the head. And we do have now forensic evidence with toxicology reports saying that literally Mark would have been comatose at the time of death because of the amount of drugs that were in his system. He would not have been able to physically kill himself. That I know, I'm aware of these drugs. I've studied them in school. I'm aware of the effects on the body and the amounts that were in his body, especially for someone who does not do those medications. There would have been no way for him to even function.
Right.
So, first and foremost, we're not experts either. But the amount of things that we can look at and clearly see just doesn't make sense. For example, her leaving work and there's no sound, there's no noise, there's no echo in the corridors, there's no jangling of keys trying to get into the vehicle, there's no starting up of the engine, there's no revving of the engine, there's no noise as she's traveling, transporting herself from work to the home. There's no exterior noise. There's no horns blowing or other sounds outside taking place on that journey. And how long was the journey from her workplace to her home?
It would take about maybe 20, 25 minutes, maybe 30 at the most.
And we're expected to believe that that journey was taken in absolute silence without her passing a single vehicle, no main roads, no traffic lights, no changing of gears up or down to go around corners or bends. And she got there in absolute silence.
Right.
But we know that that's
and
impossible.
To show you, like, all of this time, I've always said, I didn't hear anything. I didn't hear anything. Well, not too long ago, I was on the phone with a friend of mine, and she was walking home from the store. And I asked her, I said, where are you going? And she said, I'm going home. I just walked to the store. And I told her, I said, Sissy, I can literally hear your footsteps. That's what I would have heard. She said, yes, you would have heard that. Every step she took, I could hear it. And I was like, oh my God, I never realized all this time that I'm saying I didn't hear anything. That's actually what I would have heard. I heard every footstep she made. I didn't hear that. I didn't hear anything.
So you got no sound. But yet now she's arrived at the home.
There's no emotion.
There's no emotion. There's no hysterics. There's no screaming. And you'd have imagined when she got to the location, the first thing that she would have done was ran inside the house, and the first thing you'd have heard was the screaming once she found the body.
Right.
So explain to us again, because we really need to regurgitate this so that we have a full understanding of the scene as we can imagine it, because we can't see it. And this is not TV, this is radio. So you're really going to have to pictorialize this for us. So she gets to the place, but you're still on the phone with her, right?
Right.
And her mother gets there. Did her mother arrive with her? Did her mother meet her there? What happened?
No, supposedly they were there, because that's what I asked her. You know, when I finally said, have you made it? And she said, yes. And I said, are they there? And she said, yes. And then, you know, again, it's quiet. So I don't know what's going on. You know, with her saying they're not coming out, well, that lets me know, okay, you're outside. They have now gone into the house and you're just waiting. But I never heard anybody say, wait outside. Nothing.
Didn't hear her give them the keys.
Nothing.
So there was no, but most importantly, there was just no screaming. There was no emotion. There was nothing. That's what I'm saying. It was total silence until, I guess, you know, they came out and she said he did. And she kind of started crying. And then that's when her mother took the phone and said, Royce, I'm sorry. Which later on, I'm like, how did she know even who she was talking to? Because she never said anything to anybody. So how could you take the phone and say, Royce, I'm sorry? How did you know who she was even talking to? She's never had an exchange with you to say, I'm on the phone, you know, I'm on the phone with mama, because she called me mama at that time. You know, she never said anything to anybody. How do you know who she's even on the phone with? Now, let's try and evaluate this relationship, the relationship that you had with Astria prior to this call. What was the relationship like, Royce?
She was like my daughter. We talked every day. We text every day, multiple times a day. Every night she got off from work at 10 o'clock. She would call me. There have been times I'd be on the phone with a friend of mine, and I would tell her, let me call you back. I'd say, because I didn't call her by her name. I had given her a nickname. I called her Turf. And I would tell her, I say, that's Turf calling me. She's leaving work. Let me call you back. I'm going to ride home with her. Well, every night, that was our routine. We were extremely close. We didn't have the traditional mother-in-law, daughter-in-law relationship. She was like my daughter. Every new cleaning product that came out or whatever, she called, Mama, have you seen the new Fabuloso? It's a green one. No, we don't have it here. Well, that's okay. I already bought you one. We were like that.
Wow. And what was her relationship like with Marcus?
From what I always knew, they loved each other. They had, different problems how couples would have, but it was okay. But let's go ahead and put it out there. It really wasn't okay then, because she had found out he was having an affair.
He found out she was having an affair.
No, she found out he was having one. Maybe he did find out she was too, because that's come out to us also, that even though he was having one, she wasn't the perfect little angel either.
So, in your opinion, they were having this argument. Do you think this argument was taking place while she was at the house?
I don't know where she was, Kervin. Honestly, I have no idea, but I have a pretty good idea of where she wasn't. She wasn't leaving work, but I don't know where she was.
Wow. So Sevgi,
Yes.
you got a mother who is grieving for the loss of her son. She's got a daughter-in-law that was more like a daughter. Who's calling her supposedly from work to say that she thinks that he's done something. And being mother, doesn't suspect anything at the time, but realizes at some point, just because, as Royce told us, she didn't suspect anything straight away. It's kind of like the next day that it just didn't make sense.
Right.
So,
Yeah, it didn't make sense, but that's the thing. I did not go to Louisiana with a preconceived notion that something is wrong. I wasn't like that. My main concern was getting there for her and my grandkids. When I got there, the only thing I asked was what happened,
just very quickly, Royce, what part of Louisiana were we talking about?
Leonville.
Leonville?
Right.
Okay. That was a question from one of our audience, actually, Donna Trezesi, who was a very good friend. But so at this point, Sevgi, because again, as I said, you came in about a year later.
Right.
And once you came in, what was it that you found that was so intriguingly outlandish?
Well, the first red flag for me was the burning of the mattress. That right there was just something my mind could not wrap itself around. I cannot imagine returning to burn the mattress that my son-in-law or my husband died on the following day. Like, that just sounds like insanity to me. Like, I wouldn't want to be anywhere near that mattress, and I can't imagine that there would be any other reason to burn that mattress than to burn evidence. And I think, Royce, it would be good for you to just touch on the relationship between the chief of police,
okay,
and the family, because that now comes into play.
Right. everything was going okay. Like me and Dave had gotten there that Saturday. Well, this all happened on the weekend. He hadn't notified work or anything, so he had to be back at work for Monday. Well, that Sunday, we spent the night at a hotel. She called upset that Sunday, and I was like, what's the matter? And she said, everybody is going to church and I'm going to be here by myself. And I said, no, tell them to wait. I said, we're on the way over there. You won't be by yourself. Just ask everybody to wait, and I'm on the way. Well, that right there shows you there was no animosity. There was no, ooh, I'm the big bad wolf and all this kind of stuff, because she called me to let me know that she was going to be by herself and I was coming to be with her. There was still nothing, between us or what have you. So we got over there, me and Dave were there. And then after a while, there were some of her relatives at the house. And after a while, he told me, well, I need to start heading back home. Well, he told her, she was laying on the couch, and he told her, he said, I'm going to go now. He said, but I'm leaving your mama here, and y'all, hang on to each other and, take care of each other. And I told her, I'm going to walk him outside. Well, I walked him outside, and then when I stepped back in the house, it was chaos. She's hysterical, and it's not fair. She's gonna take him. How am I gonna visit? What about me and my children? And I'm like, what's wrong? What happened? And she was like, you're gonna take him. And I said, I'm not taking him. I said, I want to take Mark home. He's not from here. I want to take him home. And so, like I said, there were other relatives and all there. And I told her mother, I said, why don't we let everybody visit and all? I said, and then when everybody leaves, me and Astrid can sit down and talk and decide what's going to go on. So I was sitting over there at the table, and in the meantime, I heard like little conversations, and I told her, I said, well, Mary, I thought we were going to, just let everybody leave and then we could talk. And she was like, well, Astrid has made her decision. She wants Marcus to stay here. And I was like, well, I want him to go home. And then her daddy said, well, she's his wife. And I said, and I'm his mother. I said, and now I'm in hostile territory because all of y'all are in here with this, and I'm here by myself, And I was like, whatever. So my cousin called me, and she could tell in my voice, something was wrong. And she said, do I need to come out there? And I said, yes. And she said, okay, let me and Steph, throw some things together and we're on the way. And I said, okay, well, it takes about maybe 3.5 hours to get there from Texas. And I sit on the couch with people milling all around, not saying anything to me, because her son even said, Grandma, nobody is talking to you. And I said, no. And he said, it'll be okay. And I said, yeah, I know. So I just sit there on the couch, letting people go all around, not saying one word to me, with all of this. And, when my cousin got there, she got all hysterical again, and I'm looking like, oh, what brought that on or whatever. So my cousin told her, she said, I know you're upset or whatever. She said, but that lady that's sitting in there on that couch by herself is devastated. That is his mother. And you all have not included her in one thing. And her mother said, well, I mean, what does she want to do? She said, well, pick out a flower or something. That's her son. Well, I can't remember how it came up, but Cheryl said Astrid told her that Chief Noel was a close personal family friend, and that's the chief of police.
Wow. you say, right, two things. First and foremost, right, on Saturday, January the 5th, you went to Astria's parents' house where you spoke with Astria. And however, on that particular day, her story changed from the previous day when she said that her and Marcus was texting. She now says that Marcus and her had been talking on the phone and not texting, and that she heard a loud noise, after which Marcus said, and then she got no response. And secondly, you also say that Astria's father told you that Marcus had been reading a Bible before he took his life.
Right. Yeah.
You asked Astria's mother.
See, this happened. This happened when I asked her mother. I was like, "Can you tell me what you saw? You know, when you went in there?" And she was, you know, nonchalant. I mean, I have a son-in-law who I love dearly, and if something happened to him, it would be horrible to me, you know. And so I asked her. I said, "Was it?" You know, can you tell me what you saw when you went in there? I said, was it horrible? And she said it just like this. She was, well, I can tell you, no, it wasn't horrible. And I'm thinking, how could it not be, you know, from what you all have said?
That's also the husband of her daughter.
Right.
So it's got to be horrible.
Right. And so she said, I asked 3 questions. I asked, did he leave a note? Was he sitting and were his eyes closed? She told me, no, he didn't leave a note. She said something about he was laying next to the bed. I can't remember what she said about his legs. And she closed his eyes. Well, that's a lie, because I've talked to other people and they told me, they said, that happens on TV. You can't close their eyes. And I even talked to one of the moms I am now connected to, and her son passed away at home. And that's what she told me. She was like, Royce, his blue eyes, his beautiful blue eyes. She said, I tried my best, and so did the paramedics, to close his eyes, and we could not do it. Well, and then while she was talking, after she finished, that's when her daddy looked at me and he said, well, he was reading the Bible when he did this. He would have known it was wrong. Well, I just looked at him and I didn't ever say anything, because I started to say, how the hell do you know what he was doing? He was at home by himself, supposedly.
Here's the thing. What did Astria do for work at the hospital? What was her role? What was her job?
She's a mental health tech at Compass Behavioral Hospital.
Would it be fair to say that as a nurse of any kind, she'd have had a basic understanding of first aid and general life support or recovery positions, etc.?
I would imagine so.
So when her mother supposedly went in the house and found Marcus...
Oh, but wait a minute. Wait. Her mother also worked at a cardiologist's office.
Okay. All right, well, that nullifies my question, because I wanted to know, why didn't she call Astria in if Astria was the one that worked at the hospital? But But here's the thing. Sevgi said that the photographs showed Marcus sitting up against the dressing table. Okay. She says they found Marcus lying on the floor next to the bed.
Right.
So which one is it?
It's exactly. And that's the thing, again, is that the proper protocol was not followed in this case.
Just 1 second, Sevgi. Just 1 second, sure. Sevgi, because if they had moved the body from lying on the floor to sitting up, there would have been a paper trail, some form of blood trace, right, of the body moving from one position to another, right? So I would imagine if he was found lying on the floor and he was moved to a sitting up position, then there would have been evidence to support that. And if there wasn't, then it means that the mother was lying and she didn't find him laying on the floor.
Correct.
Right.
I know for a fact that the blood evidence does not support where Marcus is in those photographs. And it does not support the narrative that he shot himself while sitting on the bed. It does not support that. And we know that the chief of police is a close family friend. We know that he is the one who kept the sheriff from being involved in this case. We know that the medical examiner, coroner, never set eyes on Marcus. We know that, as the investigation went further, and I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but we were able to put enough pressure on the state police, and they did exhume Marcus's body and did an investigation. And we know that in that subsequent investigation, when they were interviewing that chief of police, he admits in the interviews that he washed the blood off of the gun before he put it into evidence. So we have a burned mattress by the family of this man that they supposedly love, right? We have a woman who's not emotional when she, finds out that he's dead. We have parents-in-law who have no emotion, who supposedly found him in this state. We have a body that's moved itself after death. We have a chief of police who's not allowing the proper protocol to happen. We have a chief of police who's washing blood off a gun before he puts it in evidence. That's just a small list of what's gone wrong in this case.
Let's just one pause before we move on.
Okay.
Astria calls you from the hospital to tell you that she thinks that Marcus has done something and that they were texting on the phone and all the rest of it, right? And
right.
She stays on the phone with you, right? Small connection
right.
break, and she calls you straight back.
Right.
How did her parents know that there was anything wrong at the house in the first place?
She called them.
When?
She called.
Did she call them?
I don't know the time.
Did she call them before she called you?
She called them before she called me, yes.
And they made their way to the house?
Right.
But she was taking the keys back to them so that they can go in?
So they could get in the house, right.
But surely she'd want to get in the house because she's the one that's just been talking to him.
Yes.
So
that's what I told my husband. I said, there is no way if you were in this house and I thought something was wrong with you that I would not get in that house. I said, I wouldn't be patiently waiting for somebody to bring me a key. I would have picked up the trash can and bust a window out. I would have, if I couldn't figure that out, I would have driven my car through the door to get in. I said, but I would have gotten inside that house. They're just, supposedly outside, just patiently waiting for her to bring the key.
And there was no attempt to call for backup support, police, because you think that they've...
Oh, I've heard the 911 call and Mary even says, she's calm on the call and they're not going to have to break the door, are they? Well, why not? I want you to break the door, knock windows out. I want you to do whatever you can do to get in this house. Who would be concerned with that on the phone with 911? That's what she said. They're not going to have to break the door down, are they? Oh.
So,
okay.
What was going on? What does she think was going on in Marcus's head that would actually make him want to take his life at that particular point in time?
I have no idea what was going on in her head. That Mark, I since found out, was moving back to Texas, and his best friend had gotten him, his brother had gotten him a job that was starting at the end of January. Mark was planning to move back to Texas.
So he would have actually had no reason to want to take his life at that point in time.
No, he would have had no reason to take his life, period. He loved his kids. He loved his family. He loved life. Mark would not have taken his life.
Now, you said a while ago that Marcus, she had found out that Marcus had been having an affair.
Right.
Have you heard anything from the woman that he was having the affair with as to...
Yeah.
And what's her view of what Astria...
She's never believed it.
Had she spoken to Marcus that day?
I don't think she had talked to him that day. I think she said she had talked to him either Wednesday or Thursday and had put some gas in his truck and stuff, but I don't think she had talked to him that day.
And how did
but
she...
he had even asked her to move to Texas with him, but she told him, see, make the plot even thicker. She's Astria's cousin, but she wasn't brought up around them. So she didn't know who Mark was. Mark didn't know who she was. Well, even after they found out who each other was, they continued.
Okay.
But once Astria found out about it, she told Mark, you know, after he had asked her to move to Texas with him, she told him, no, you know, you try to make it work with your wife and your family. But he had talked to a friend of his because he called me and told me, I think he told me it was like December 17th or 18th. He had talked to Mark. He said, and Mark, he called him Marcus. He said, and Marcus told me, we've tried it. It's not working. This girl is crazy. I'm going to get the hell on away from her. I'm coming back home. I'm going to get a divorce. And he asked him, he said, well, what are you going to do with your horses? Because they had horses. And he said, I'll bring them and put them over at my grandmother's if I have to. So why would he take his life behind somebody he had told numerous people he was done with? That doesn't make sense.
So,
and Royce, it might be pertinent to mention who the connection of who Astria was having an affair with.
Yeah. And, supposedly, that's why I said I wish Mark could be on here, because through their digging and however they find out different things, they were able to find out that the person Astria had been having an affair with was the chief of police.
The chief of police that was connected to the family.
Yes.
The one
who washed the blood off the gun, the one who didn't allow the sheriff's department in to do the investigation.
So, therefore, we could assume that he had a hand to play in corrupting the scene and making it look like, or trying to make it look like a suicide.
I imagine
Absolutely.
So. Yeah. That's why I said I wish he was on here, because he could tell you more information about that or whatever, because that's the information he told me that their organization found out.
The unfortunate thing is, and I did want to tell you earlier, but Mark has long since given up trying to get on the line. Mm. He's tried 2 computers, and both of them, one of them says it's busy. He's having an absolutely terrible time, and he says that he's done nothing but mess up recently, and he's not happy with himself. But he's not going to be able to make it on the show, so we're going to have to. We've only got a half an hour left, and we're going to run through the last half hour together as best as we can, trying to piece together the bits and pieces that we know. So we're now talking about where we are now, well, not where we are now, but the connection between Astria and the chief of police, and that coming out as them having an affair has really thrown a red flag up as to what could have possibly taken place there. We can only surmise and assume, but
right.
And I think Mark does have more information and evidence based on his investigations, which unfortunately he can't be here to verify.
Right.
But do we know how long that these two had been in an affair or relationship?
No. I don't. He didn't tell me that.
And has Astria ever admitted to being in a relationship with him?
No. No.
So, based on conversations that you've had with Mark, based on the information and everything else, that we know, where does that leave you as far as an investigation or a campaign or justice is concerned for Marcus?
Well, what Mark is hoping with all of this new information, that they'll get a grand jury or an inquest, because it's blatant. It's in your face. It's been proven that Mark did not take his life. And the people out there know it. I mean, I've called, I've sent information. I'm like, when the captain and the detective came to Texas to talk to me, he lied to my face because I asked him, well, what did the toxicology report say? He told me they didn't do one. I now have the toxicology report that Mark was exhumed on June 2nd. The toxicology report is dated June 20th, which means they got that report 18 days later. They did not come to Texas until 6 months later to tell me their evidence proves that he took his life. Well, no.
And they did everything they could to make sure we did not know about the fact that they were going to exhume the body. Fortunately, we did a call to action, and people across the country emailed, phone calls to multiple people having to do with the case. And we were fortunate enough to irritate somebody. Was it the sheriff? Who was it?
Yeah, the sheriff sent you that email.
He sent an email and he said, there's an exhumation order. It's happening tomorrow. Basically, Royce had 24 hours to get from Texas to Louisiana. They didn't notify her that they were going to do it.
They, and Kervin, like what Mark said, he's pretty sure he's read somewhere that the exhumation order was signed either the day before or the day of. I have since read a document that says this is duly done and signed on May 24th, 2016. The order to exhume Mark was signed the day before his birthday, which was the day before the call to action, which by the time the exhumation order was signed, Astria had 2 inconclusive polygraph tests. And all of this is 3 years after Mark had passed away.
And the state of Louisiana, having a body exhumed just doesn't happen. It just doesn't happen
anywhere.
The detective that was on the case said in his 30 years he's never seen anything like this happen. So for them to do that, they know something was wrong.
Right.
I mean, there had to be significant evidence to warrant them doing that. And
right.
We had hopes that that was all that we needed. But unfortunately, we see the reports. We were not supposed to get this full report. Let's just go there. They came and brought Royce a 3-paragraph piece of paper, basically stating nothing except for that Marcus killed himself, and that's what their report that's what they've decided from their investigation. We went through all of this hassle to try to get the full report after that, and we got a mess of redacted. I mean, it was ridiculous what they sent us. And then out of the blue, last September, was it?
Right.
We get the file. Royce receives the full file with nothing. And that was not supposed to come to us, but somebody did us a huge favor. And going through that file is where we have found all of this. We've been able to listen to the polygraphs. We've been able to watch them. We've been able to look at the toxicology. That's where all of this has come from. But
I've been able to look at the call log where it looks like hundreds of calls were placed from her phone that day. It's ridiculous.
What I'm saying is the state police knew all of this within a month of, the exhumation, and they didn't come to tell Royce anything for 6 months.
Right.
And in that 6 month period of time, they did what they had to do to try to bury it. And it's very clear that they are not going to help. We can't reach anybody that we were able to reach before. There's no phone calls back, nothing. The detective that was very good about being in touch with Royce, nothing.
Right.
Zero.
I've not heard from him. They came here December 13th, 2016. I have not spoken to him since that day.
Wow. Just a couple of things pop out for me. I want to take you back to, I think it's February the 26th, 2014. You spoke to Kathy at Acadian Ambulance. Police report said that they arrived on the scene to check on Mark. Tell me about that call with Kathy.
Well, I had asked, for information with that, and I was told. Kathy told me, she said, of course, if I have a report or anything, I can send it to you. And I said, okay. And she went, and I said, what's the matter? And she said, well, I see a call came in. She said, but I don't see any report. She said, all it says is police on scene, but there's nothing. There's no report. There's nothing here for me to send you. Well, I called back, I'm like, well, that doesn't surprise me. So she and I kind of communicated, and then I'd have to go back and look to find the lady's name I spoke to. And I even asked, I said, is this where Kathy works? And she was like, yes. And I told her what she had said. Well, that lady sent me an email link that would expire in like 24 hours. And I logged into it, and it was like this, I called it phone chatter, radio chatter. And so I printed it out, and it even conflicts itself. It's like it's telling you the ambulance has been dispatched. Okay, the ambulance has arrived. Then you go down 2 or 3 lines later, and it's telling you the ambulance was dispatched, and I've highlighted it and all. And I'm like, how many times are they going to dispatch it when it's already there? It was nothing. That's like, Sevgi can tell you, because she's seen the same thing. Everything that they send contradicts itself. This report contradicts that one. That report contradicts what you said in the other one. Because when they send stuff, a friend of mine that had been in law enforcement for over 30 years told me, I know you go over everything they send you with 40 fine teeth combs. I said, and a highlighter.
Yes, she does.
I sit down and I highlight things, and I write on the side of it, okay, how is this so? When up here you just said this, just like when I saw the autopsy report. In one line it tells you multiple fractures. I highlight that. Then I come down 3 or 4 lines later, and it tells you no fractures. I highlight that and I write on the side. Well, how is that possible? Did they heal? You know, it's just, like I said, Sevgi can tell you, when I sent her stuff, it was highlights and question marks and everything everywhere with me writing on the side, okay, look up 4 lines above you and read what they just said. Everything contradicts itself. It's like this department didn't know what they were sending. The other department didn't know what the other one had sent, what they said. It's just everything contradicts itself. It's blatant. It's, you know, I'm like,
Hey, are you there? Can't lose you now. Are you there, Sevgi?
I'm here. Yeah, I lost you guys for a second. But
I think we've lost Royce. Can you just step right on in there?
They tried to call me and I hung up on it.
Okay, carry on, Royce. We lost you for a minute. Carry on.
Okay, somebody was trying to call and I hung up. But it was, like I said, you know, Sevgi can tell you everything contradicts itself. It's just a bunch of contradictory papers. You know, it's mind-boggling.
So, go on, Sevgi.
I was just going to say that in the beginning of the show, I said, you know, this is a case where it can show the depths of corruption. And it's pretty clear. It went from a local issue with this chief of police to literally a state police issue, because we've got cover up happening from the bottom to the top at this point. And at some point, a lot of people are going to be in a lot of hot water, because we do have all the evidence now, and it's just a matter of getting it to the right people. And I know Mark has been.
Yes, Mark's on here. Can you hear me?
Oh, hey!
Oh, hallelujah! Right.
He said, yes, Mark's on here. Can you hear me?
We've been trying to cover as much as we can, but, you know, you're the technical specialist, so I'm glad you're here.
Yeah, that was funny. Mark's on here. Can you? Thank you, Mark. The other Mark, too. I guess he's been trying his best to get him on here.
Well, I'm glad you never gave up, Mark. Thank you for.
What I had to do is I had to take Skype completely out and re-downloaded it, and then it worked.
Fantastic.
Okay, good.
Okay, listen, this is where we're at the minute, Mark, and probably this is the best time to get you in. We're really looking at this relationship between Astria and the chief of police. And both Sevgi and Royce were saying they really hoped that you was here because you'd be able to open that up a bit more for us.
Well, here's what we learned through our investigation. We was told that the estranged wife was dating one of the relatives of the chief of police. And so we talked to that person and come to find out that he told our investigator that, no, he was the estranged wife's driver to take her to meet Chief Noel in another town at a motel.
Wow.
Okay. Now, since this is all came about, this person has failed to give us any other information. But Miss Royce, when she was there to when the body was exhumed, she went into this motel, and the motel clerk told her a little story that added up with the information that we had.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the main reasons of all this is I have some very interesting news that hasn't been released to the public, and I know for a fact now there was somebody in the room with Mr. Merritt when he died.
Wow.
And by the death room photos and the blood evidence, we can prove that. There's no question about it. There was somebody else in that room.
When you look at the situation based on the fact that Royce says that she was on a call to Astria for the entire time that Astria claimed that she was making her way from work to the house, but we heard no noise. There was no noise from work. There was no jangling of keys. There was no changing of gears. There was no horns blowing as she made her way on a 25-minute journey from work to home. Can it be assumed that Astrid was at the house all the time, or at the house at the time that it happened?
Well, with that being said, no noise, no keys, no nothing. And matter of fact, Mr. Royce will tell you this. The other night when we was talking, she had to leave to go get something to eat. Well, I heard the keys. I heard her get in the car. I heard all that as she's talking to me. Mm-hmm. And with her not hearing this background noise with the call to Astria, that does bring everything else into question. Where was she exactly at that time?
Right.
Is there an opportunity, perchance, that you will be able to identify who was in the room with Marcus at any point, or is that something that's now out?
Well, let me just give you the evidence first. This is going to blow people away. This has never been released. Okay, on the photo of the bed, the blood evidence, okay, there's 2 white voids in the middle of the blood evidence. Okay, there's blood all around the white voids. That means at the time of Mr. Merritt's death, some 2 objects was laying on the bed. Okay, those objects was never gathered into evidence and was never listed on any report. So we have to assume whatever those objects was taken by another person. Now, here's another thing. I made a mistake about the turning of his body. It wasn't a 180 turn. It was a 90-degree turn. And the reason for this mistake was our engineer didn't understand the way Mr. Merritt was positioned at the beginning before his death. After we got that straightened around, we determined it was a 90-degree turn. But once again, that is impossible and it defeats the laws of gravity. Now let's take the location where Mr. Merritt was found, his back up against the nightstand or dresser, and with his head being up. Okay, I had an opportunity to blow up these photos 500%. And on the nightstand or dresser, whatever you want to call it, there is 3 cast-off blood traces going down, and the tail end is heading towards the wall. Okay, if you take the position Mr. Merritt was in, okay, also from that cast-off, the last cast-off is on the bottom of the nightstand, and from there is gravitational blood drops. Gravitational blood drops are when the person that's injured and is bleeding is not moving at that time. And then there's a 6-inch void, okay? And in that 6-inch void, after that, there's 3 minute traces of what I call gravitational spatter blood drops. And the reason for that is that 6-inch void, that's when they wrap something around their injury to stop the bleeding. And the 3 drops 6 inches farther from that is from where they squeezed through the material that they was using to stop the bleeding, and it bled onto the floor. Now, you take this in all consideration. Now, here's the kicker. This is something they cannot explain away. They're going to have to do something about this. This blood evidence would have been behind Mr. Merritt.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no way of explaining that away. Now, here's another thing about the gun. Okay, looking at those photos. Mr. Merritt was right-handed, and where his body was positioned, he went to the right. Okay, the gun was 2 feet from Mr. Merritt's left side. Okay, we know Mr. Merritt didn't toss the gun there, and we know his mouth didn't toss the gun there. So where does that come into play?
Who tossed the gun to the left-hand side when he's right-handed?
Exactly. So this is concrete evidence that somebody else was in the room with Mr. Merritt and they were behind him. And they're gonna have to do something about this. This is concrete evidence. You can't explain blood evidence away. That's something that can't be done. So they're going to have to give us what we want. They're going to have to move on this, because there is no question from the beginning, after Miss Royce started sending us records and documents and stuff. Her first email was March 24, 2014. Okay, we applied to her on April 12th. May 30th, she done an intake form. And then before June 14th, our staff had 2 online meetings about the case. One lasted 4 hours, one lasted 4.5 hours. And we gave the evidence to 7 staff members who wasn't involved in this case, knew nothing about the case. We redacted everything from the reports, such as names and the state, the town, and so on. And all 7 of those staff members ruled it homicide just by what they read from the documents Miss Royce provided for us. And so that's another tale sign to where I knew we was on the right track. And that's why I've always thought from the beginning, before we even got the police reports, that's why I knew from the beginning we was dealing with the homicide. And now with this new blood evidence and the position of the body, position of the gun, there is no question. There was somebody else in that room, and I don't care what they say. And if they think I'm wrong, prove me wrong. And let's go from there.
Here's the thing, Mark, you're no spring chicken, and especially in investigation. How long have you been dealing with investigations as a private investigator?
Well, I call myself an independent investigator because I don't hold a actual private investigator's license, but I'm an independent investigator. I used to work for the highest bidder in government service, such as DEA, ATF, and so on, locals, and all that. And I've been doing this 40 plus years.
So you have 40 plus years experience as an investigator.
Yes, and during those years of going to school and working undercover, I traveled with a deputy coroner who was one of my handlers, and I've been involved in 328 death investigations that covers everything. He done the hands-on work to the body. I took the notes for him. That's why I knew when they done the autopsy on Mr. Merritt, it wasn't done properly. And that's why they didn't want me in the room, because if I was in that room and what they done, I said, no, I would have said time out here. No, you're not following protocols here. And they didn't. They let vital evidence fall on the floor instead of putting it in an evidence bag. They threw it in the trash. And that's on the video. This stuff is all came from them, and they want to lie out of it. How do you lie out? How do you lie out of something like that?
Okay, Mark.
Yeah.
The last time we were on here and you told Kervin that you saw something that disturbed you, you can go ahead and tell him what you saw.
Okay. Well, it took me almost 2 years to tell Miss Royce. But what they done is, first of all, to me, they treated Mr. Merritt with disrespect. For one thing, they was lowering him on the table. His boot flopped off and landed in the sink. And then the next thing that caught my eye that did make no sense to me, and I thought it was uncalled for, and there's been a report made about it. They took the bone cracker and cracked him up the middle like they do on an autopsy. Okay, that's fine and dandy, but after they done that, they didn't take no samples or nothing. They sewed him right back up. So what it was the intentions of doing something like that? To me, they were pissed off that they had to do this, and they knew somebody was going to watch that video, so they decided just to do anything they wanted to. That what they done to his body was uncalled for. Had no evidentiary value, none whatsoever. I could see if they went in and took samples and everything. No, they didn't take the samples from there. They entered his side to take the samples. His side was wide open. So, like I said, it just, Matter of fact, it upset the medical examiners. We had to look at the video. They're the ones that filed complaints with the ethics committee.
So we're talking about a gentleman who's done 328, I believe you said, murder investigations.
Well, death investigations that covered everything.
Yeah, death investigations.
Yeah, it covered everything. Car wrecks, accidents, murder, everything. It covered everything.
And when you're looking at the evidence that you have in front of you, especially since you've made contact with Royce and have heard her explanations as to how this materialized from the get-go when Astria first called her, to her parents finding the body laying on the floor next to the bed, yet the photographs revealing it as propped up or sitting up against the dresser. The mother saying that she closed his eyes, and medical evidence says that it's impossible to close the eyes once they're dead. How is all this? How is all of this looking for Astria? Because it seems like Astria is the only one who's trying to is the only one who wants to convince herself that Marcus took his own life. There is absolutely no other evidence that suggests Marcus actually had a desire to take his own life.
See, that's correct. And see, the same way on the forensic psychological profile they done on Mr. Merritt, it was one-sided because they interviewed Astria and her family and her side of the friends that her and Marcus knew together. That's not a justified and correct way to do it. They should have talked to Miss Royce, his sister, and any other relatives. Because, okay, if you look at all the facts and you look at the fact that Mr. Merritt was days away from leaving to move back to Texas, start a new job and everything, okay, our psychological profile on Mr. Merritt is that you don't make plans for the near future if you're going to kill yourself. I mean, let's be real. Why lead somebody on saying, hey, yeah, I'll take that job, I'll move down there and all that, if you know you're going to kill yourself?
Mm-hmm.
There apparently appears to be no desire. The unfortunate thing is, Mark, as late as you've arrived, we've now come to the end of the show, and I really wish that we had 2 hours to spend all over again so that we can take it back to the top. The first and foremost, I want to thank you for making that extra effort, that you were able to join and give us those golden pieces of nuggets of new information and new evidence, especially with the blood trail and the position and everything else, and the fact that somebody must have been in the room, the missing items that are missing from the bed, and the 6-inch gaps that are on the floor in the blood or in the blood gaps. All of this is vital information that's going to prompt and force somebody to look into this again. Vital information that I'm quite sure that Royce and Sevgi and everybody else is going to be absolutely delighted with. And so I therefore believe that we're going to have to revisit this particular case for a third time.
Can I just say something really quickly?
Go ahead, Sevgi.
To all of your listeners, we are in the process of putting together a comprehensive file that we're going to be sending out to attorneys in the hopes that we can secure Royce some legal help in making motions to move this forward. And we request that if anyone out there has a criminal attorney who would be willing to take a look at the evidence and at our file, to please contact Together We Stand at twsrevolution.org, or to reach out to us at 1-800-528-1084, and we will send the file to you. It's, I think, a huge step.
I've got two people that I want to direct you to, that I'll speak on your behalf. They support my show, and I'm quite sure I can say this, but I want you to get in touch with Jerry Summers. Okay. Jerry Summers is a former chief of police, and he'll look at the case for you pro bono. Jonathan Newton
Jonathan is a great friend of mine, and we work closely together.
Then
he's actually given me some names of some folks out here in California.
Okay, so these are two guys that I would champion up there to help you in your cause. And Jerry Summers will definitely have a look at that. They're going to be involved in our United Nations show. We've got the director of the United Nations supposedly coming on here next week, I believe, along with Greg Greer as well.
Wow.
So we can look at how we can bring pressure to bear on the United States government of America for the way they especially treat people of color and they handle unlawful killing and wrongful convictions. So keep your ears peeled for that one. I'm really sorry that we really have run out of time. And I'd really love to have given you more time. I want to just leave the last words with Royce, if I can, if you've got anything you want to add, Royce.
I really appreciate all the help that, thank you for having us on here again. I can't thank Mark and Sevgi enough for what they've done, what they're continuing to do. And if, like she said, if there's anyone listening that can, step up and do anything more to try and push this forward, we'd really appreciate it.
The one thing that I can tell you categorically this time, Royce, is that you will have the full 2-hour recording. It's available. We've had no cutoffs, no interruptions, and we've got sound.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Good.
Once again, Mark, thank you very much for joining us. As late as it is, well, Sevgi, it's always been an honor. Congratulations again on your newborn, and we look forward to doing some more work together with you. And together we stand. And Royce, thank you very much for sharing your story with us here on World Jam Global Radio's Issues Today. And we'll look forward to hearing some more and giving an update on the Marcus Merritt Twist in the Tail story. Thank you very much, guys, but we've run out of time. We're out of here.
Okay. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Imperial Lounge presents an icon.
Reggae dancehall by the beach. To be held at Imperial Lounge, 2 to 14 High Street, Margate Seafront, Kent, CT9 180. To be held on the first Saturday of each month. Your host DJ Matt. Also rotated DJs, Roddy Boone, DJ Happy,
and Younger General.
Doors open 8 p.m. till late. Free entry all night. Music policy, reggae, dancehall, and a touch of soul. On the first Saturday of each month. Reggae dancehall by the beach. At the Imperial Lounge Margate. Do remember, you can also get VIP and Shisha booking. More info on the World Jam Global website. That's www.worldjamglobal.com. Also www.imperialloungemargate.co.uk.
See you there.
It's the right thing you doing. Rebellious like Malcolm. 1, 2, 3, swing it.
Have an old sound tape or your favorite cassette tape that you want converted to CD or MP3 format? Do you need a demo CD, radio ad, a DJ, or even a sound system for your wedding, birthday, or special occasion? Then why not get in contact with KTR Records on 07931 152 448 or check out our website on www.ktrrecords.com. We have been in business since 2004 and also undertake community projects. So for your remixes, dubplates and all your sound editing needs, why not contact KTR Records, official sponsor of World Jam Global Radio. KTR Records, coming your way.
Do you like music like this?
Great music all the time.
Or like this?
The music you love.
Maybe this.
Great music that makes you want to turn up the volume loud.
Or life track like this.
Especially where human life is concerned. Surely, sooner or later, people will realize that lives actually matter.
Then you're in the right place. Keep it locked to World Jam Global, where music is harmony.
Music 24 hours a day, 365 days a year.
Yeah, you're a World Jam. Hotter than them.
See live schedule.
You see it, it's here. You see it. New feature coming from World Jam Global Radio in 2018. World Jam Global Top 10. To vote for your favorite artist, go to twitter.com/World Jam Global or facebook.com/World slot, World Jam Global. So pick the right track, where you want to have in your car, or your house, or rock. At them,